The biggest lessons I've learned in my life are here. Through different topics, I'm going to inspire and motivate you to reach your success and your dreams. I'm so grateful that you're here on Journey to Success. So let's enjoy my next episode together. Fabio here from the Fabio podcast, From Failure to Success. How are you today?
Hi, Fabio. Other than a scratchy throat from a bit of flu, I'm great. How are you?
Everything's great. Everything's good. And I don't know, there is a good energy today. So let's keep like that.
Good.
Yeah. And first of all, I want to express my gratitude for joining us and sharing your sensitive story of a sexual assault. And thank you so much. And I truly believe that your story will give courage to other victims to react as bravely as you did.
I hope it does. That is my intention.
That's super. I would like to divide this story into three parts, Lois. So what happened that day, what occurred after your experience, and how you overcame to become the strong woman that you clearly are. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right. So let's begin then. Just like a drama movie with a good ending. So what happened that day? Tell me.
Okay, I had a small printing business and I was working late one night in what I considered was a very secure courtyard. It was a beautiful summer's evening. I had the radio on, I had a drink, and I was working in this courtyard. I was surrounded by an 8-foot wall, and I was quite happily working. And the first that I knew that somebody was in my space was when I felt somebody grab me around the neck and hold a screwdriver to my neck. And so that's how it started. So this man had scaled this 8-foot wall. I didn't hear him because of the radio. And he proceeded to stab me with the screwdriver.
Whoa.
I immediately went into fight mode. Maybe that's being the courageous or maybe stupid. I'm not sure which that you called me courageous. But I immediately decided to fight. And I fought this man with everything that I had. But unfortunately, I wasn't a very good fighter. I didn't know how to fight. And he stabbed me numerous times. He stabbed me in the mouth. He broke my tooth. He stabbed me in the ear. He throttled me. I felt I was blacking out. At one point, my contact lenses popped out. So it was a very, very brutal fight. I did at some point grab the screwdriver and stab him. But he took the glass that I had on the table and he smashed the glass and he came at me with the glass into my stomach. And I thought, no, he's going to cut me open and I'm going to die. And that's when I stopped fighting. I thought I would rather live. And so I stopped fighting. And he pushed me into a corner and he raped me. And he tied me up. He found some strapping material that I had lying around and he tied me up. He tore my T-shirt. He tied me up with that. There were all kinds of things that he tied me up with. And he stole my car and left. I was bleeding profusely. And if I hadn't managed to get myself free, I would have bled to death. I had the foresight when he broke the glass. I managed to grab a piece of the broken glass and I held it in my hands and I managed to cut myself free with that piece of broken glass after he left.
Wow. That's very, very sensitive story. Truly.
Yeah, it was pretty violent. It was, I'm relaxed about it now, but obviously at the time it was extremely traumatic.
Yeah, I totally understand. And I'm going to make this question, maybe it may be a stupid question, right? So, but how did you feel? So what was the feeling? Maybe anger, maybe you felt guilty. So what was the feeling at that moment?
My immediate feeling was absolute anger, outrage. How could this happen to me? Today people talk about these kind of assaults quite freely, but this happened some years ago and nobody ever spoke about it. The word was never used in public circles. And so, like, this doesn't happen. How can this
Yeah.
happen to me? So I was absolutely outraged. I was so filled with anger. I cut myself free. I ran to the phone, called the police, and I just kept shouting, "He's stolen my car! He's stolen my car! He's heading
Yeah.
down the street." I even shouted the wrong name of the car. I said, "He's driving my Jetta." It wasn't a Jetta. I said, "It's a red Jetta. And he's driving it down Bree Street. Get him, get him, get him." And I just wanted him caught. I was so outraged.
Wow. Um, well, I really hope they took this guy at the end, but maybe you don't know, actually.
Well, I'll tell you exactly what happened. I was so cross then with the police because I said, "What's your name? And they were asking me all these questions. I said, "Forget my name. Go and get him." I was so angry with the police. But they had already patched it through, I suppose, is the terminology that the cops use. But they'd already patched it through. And instead of saying, "We got it, now relax, tell me your name," they just kept asking me for my name. They caught him within 10 minutes. There was a shootout. My poor car had bullet wounds in it. And they caught him literally 10 minutes after I phoned. So yes, and immediately I relaxed. The minute I knew, the first people on the scene were two cops, a young woman and her partner who happened to be just a couple of blocks away. And they were the first people on the scene. And she was trained in helping trauma victims.
Yeah.
And so the first thing she did was just make sure I wasn't going to die. She stemmed the flow of blood. And then she just said, "We got him." And I was just so calm when she said that. I just thought, okay, it's okay now. They've got him.
Well, that was a good news, and I think you were totally relieved about it, you know.
Absolutely. At this point, I hadn't processed the physical or the emotional impact, basically, as a result of this assault. I hadn't really thought, it was still just the buzz of this fight and the viciousness of it that was still boiling in my head.
Got it. And after this experience, how this sexual assault affect your brain, Lois?
Well,
Because I think it's especially people don't talk about it, right? People talk more in about in a physical way, right? But I guess impact hardly also the mindset, the mind, the brain.
Yeah. So in my case, it was like, this shouldn't happen. Why did this happen?
Yeah.
How did this happen? And so I wanted to change the world. I just thought, this shouldn't happen. I'm a good girl. This doesn't happen to good girls. And
Yeah.
I was determined to make a difference and to let people know that this can happen to anybody. And happen to somebody in the security of their own safe home. Although it wasn't a home, it was my place of business. And I just thought people must know about this. And so I became an activist immediately. I became an activist and I started petitioning and I started leading marches through the street. And this again, remember, it was way before the Me Too movement and way before this was spoken about. And so it was, a lot of people were scared of me. They were afraid to talk to me. They didn't know what to say to me. But I wrote letters to the various ministers, and I even wrote, Nelson Mandela was in power at the time.
Oh.
I wrote to him. I wanted to make a difference. it was at the time when South Africa was going through its change from apartheid, and they were busy writing a new constitution. And I wanted this in the constitution, that this shouldn't happen. And I wanted to make a change. I wanted to make a difference. And so I did everything I could. I was on TV and in magazines, and I became very public. And at that point, only one other person had become public through a rape, and that was a girl who was brutally, brutally attacked by three Satanists, or two Satanists, and she became headline news, not out of choice. It was just her attack was so incredibly brutal that she was front page news for a long, long time. And so I was the first person to actually come out voluntarily to share my story. So people were a little bit scared of me, I think. And that made me even more angry, I suppose. I wanted to make even more of a difference, because people should know about this. People should know that these, let's call it an ordinary attack, can happen to an ordinary person.
All right. So people were scared about you, but I don't understand why. I mean, maybe because they felt maybe the same people have been assaulted as well, and maybe somehow they felt guilty about it, do not say their story. It could be.
Absolutely. I gave a talk to a women's group. There were 100 women in the group, and I gave a talk, and I said to them, statistically, 25 of you in this room have been or will be raped. And of course, there was a stunned silence. And when I went to the change room afterwards, 3 women came up to me, and I was the first person they'd ever told that they'd also had such an experience. And it just confirmed to me that, yes, the statistics are true. This does happen, and people are afraid. They're afraid to talk about it. The Me Too movement has been great in that it's lifted the stigma off it. But in those days, people didn't talk about it because maybe it was my fault. Maybe I asked for it. I was wearing something sexy. I had too much to drink. And so a lot of people blamed themselves. And so they were scared to talk about it, and they were scared to talk to me about it in case their stories were revealed as well. And there was I had one gentleman who said to me, I wish you would stop talking about it. It's embarrassing. And so, I had that kind of negativity as well, that people didn't want to hear my story. Maybe he was guilty of doing it himself, or maybe not protecting somebody. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, this thing, I think, happened maybe around 20, 30 years ago. I'm just guessing. I don't know.
About 25 or so years ago now.
Right. So the world was also a little bit different. You know, there was a taboo about kind of everything. So I guess this impacted a lot the way you used to talk to the people, and the way they used to listen certain things from you. Fortunately, well, the world is it's not that it's going better, but fortunately for this, I mean, there is less taboo about kind of everything than a couple of decades ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I have to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, I think maybe it's gone too far the other way. The Me Too movement really opened it up for everybody. But I think what's happening now, it's become almost wallpaper. Every time you open any news media, it's just screaming, this one was attacked, this one was raped, this one was murdered. And there's so many protests, and there's so many marches and what have you, that I think people have stopped taking notice now. It's gone over the top, I think. That's my personal opinion. There's just so much of it now. It's like everybody's experienced it. If you haven't experienced it yourself, you know somebody personally who has experienced it. And so people have stopped taking notice now, and that scares me again.
Because the people want to be far from trouble, and that's okay like that. I mean, all of us like to live in a sort of bubble, you know. That is true, right? Also, if I think, also myself with my partner, we like to live in our bubble, and we're happy together, and I don't know, we like theme park, and we travel and everything. But then once something happened around us, then we are like, a bit shaked, like in a way, hey, yeah, that's also part of the world, when things happen around us, and they shake your life a bit. And it's not wrong or right, but that's just an alarm that say to you, yeah, okay, it's okay, you can enjoy, you can have your life, but to the other side there is something else, and you have to be aware from it.
That's so true. We all just need to get on with our lives, and we can't allow the bad news to impact us too deeply. There's so much trouble in the world, not only this kind of trouble, but world wars and all kinds of wars and other accidents and horrible things that happen, that if we focus on everything, we would go mad. It's just too much to cope with.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. And well, you also say to me in chat that you had a pregnancy-related congestive heart failure, right? Correct?
No.
Oh, no, wasn't you? All right. I made a mistake then. Possible.
I think
Possible.
I think the story that relates to this so much is 2 years after I was raped. One morning, I just couldn't get out of bed. My back collapsed, and
Oh, yeah, that's correct.
yeah,
Yeah. That's correct. That's
yeah.
exactly. So, my question is, if it was related to what happened, to if it was related to this sexual assault, yes or not. So that was my question, basically.
Yes. So 2 years later, I couldn't get out of
Okay.
bed. I went to doctors, had X-rays and scans and what have you,
All right.
and they said I had to have a back operation. So I had a back operation. It failed. I had a second back operation. It failed. The surgeon told me that I would never do two of my favorite things again, which was hiking and scuba diving, because I could no longer carry anything on my back. And I was bedridden for 6 months. I had to go home with a home nurse. I could do nothing for myself. And one day, my sister, she said to me that it was all in my mind. There was nothing wrong with me. And she just said to me, I am hiding something. Instead of facing something, I'm putting it behind me, and I'm putting it behind me, and I'm putting it on my back where I can't see it. And so my back has collapsed because my back can't hold it anymore. And
Okay.
just that conversation opened up a whole new line for me.
Before we go through, if you're enjoying this podcast, please consider taking just 3 seconds to share it with someone else. It is a small gesture that could make a big difference in someone's day. Now, sit back and enjoy the rest of the episode. Right. Well, I think you made a purpose anyway of what happened to you, and it's beautiful to hear. Maybe I don't know if beautiful is the right word actually, but it's important and powerful to hear from your voice how much strong you are. That's absolutely what I want the people hear from my podcast. The name of the podcast is the Fabio Podcast from Failure to Success. And I actually, I've chosen you for this reason because you overcame and you are clearly strong. I actually very admire you right now. So my compliment, truly.
Thank you.
Well, it's true. It's true. I totally believe it. And well, tell us how you managed to become the strong woman you are today. So, what did you do after that experience? So, you already say that you used to talk with TV and journal. So, how this how it evolved basically after that?
Well, it was a series of events. The first thing that happened, not long, a couple of months after the attack, I was in partnership in this business. I didn't want to work in this business anymore because it had too many negative associations. And so I said to my partner, I wanted him to buy me out. And instead of buying me out, he betrayed me and he put the business into liquidation. And I went deep into debt, huge, huge, huge debt that I couldn't recover from. And so I eventually had to go out and get a job and start from scratch all over again. And then, so I was had to just get on with my life. I had to stop being an activist because I didn't have the energy because I had to go and earn a living again and start a new job. And then I had the back problem. And so I was really at the bottom of the barrel. And after this talk with my sister about putting things behind me on my back, I did some inner work. And that is what I should have done right at the beginning before I became an activist. And that's my advice to everybody: don't wait 2 years. Um, I did some inner work, I did some inner healing, and I went for 8 chiropractic treatments. And against all the odds, I ended up doing a 5-day hiking trail with a 29-kilogram backpack on my back after I was told I could never do it. So it was that emotional work that I did, that inner healing that I did, that really got me through it in the shorter term. I didn't heal completely at that point. I healed physically. Um, I think I had a natural resilience from my childhood and from other
Yeah.
misadventures in my life. So I had that resilience to pick myself up. But I think the big healing came 14 years later. And again, I say to people, don't wait 14 years. It just took me a while to find the solution. But 14 years later, the rapist had been apprehended. He was given a 25-year prison sentence. And I then left the country and I was working overseas. And I'd been away for a year and I was coming back for my first holiday. And in the 14 years, I had never once inquired about how this man was doing in prison. It just didn't cross my mind to find out. I just knew
Hmm.
he was locked away. And I just thought, I wonder where he is. So I contacted the officials because, they release people all the time for good behavior and other things.
Yeah.
So I contacted the officials and they told me he was coming up for parole the day after I arrived back in the country. And that was just to me such a coincidence. It was a sign. The law had just changed, allowing what they call victims of serious crime to attend a parole hearing. It was a brand new law. And so I decided to go to this parole hearing
Wow.
against the advice of all my family and friends, saying it would trigger me and it would just bring back all the terrible memories. And I just said, no, that's serendipity. The fact that the law has changed, the fact that it's happening the day after I arrive back, I've got to go. For what end, I don't know, but I've got to go. And then somebody said to me, well, if you're going, might as well forgive him. And I said, don't be stupid. How on earth can you forgive something as horrendous as this? But I did a lot of research, and I went to the prison, and it was quite an area. I was the first person in South Africa to attend one of these new parole hearings, and they weren't quite sure how to handle me. So it was quite an experience, and I could spend a whole hour talking just about the parole hearing. But after they'd gone through all the formalities, they said, did I have anything to say? And I just looked at him and I said, I forgive you. There was a little bit more to that. I didn't say, just say, I forgive you.
Wow.
I made a little speech, and I forgave him. And everybody was dumbfounded. And they said to me they would let me know in 7 days if he got parole or not. And I just looked at them and I said, no, you won't tell me if he got parole or not, because now I don't know. I don't need to know. The beauty of that experience was it freed me. That forgiveness is about freeing yourself, breaking that bond that is tying you to that person or to that situation. And by forgiving, it's not in terms of the spiritual sense of forgiving or the religious sense of forgiving. It's about breaking that bond that's holding you back. And I did not walk out of that prison. I literally flew out of that prison a completely free person.
For you, I think it was more like you were closing finally that chapter, you know?
Yeah, it is a little bit. You never forget. You never forget these things, but it stopped being a trigger for me.
Yeah.
I if somebody ever came up behind me, I would jump. I would never sit with my back to anything that was open, to an open door in a restaurant. If there was, I had to sit with my back to a wall because I was always triggered. Somebody just had to go boo behind me, and I would jump. And after I forgave, immediately that stopped. I stopped being triggered. I stopped being afraid.
Right. So you still had the demons, of course, but it's something you are bringing with you, but you accept it maybe. Now you are accepting about what happened.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
part of who I am now. It's part of my history. It's part of my genes. It's part of me.
Yeah. And are you still continuing to be an activist, maybe on your own with people around you?
Slightly differently now. I'm a coach, and so
Oh, well.
I coach people who have been through trauma. I help them. I've created a model where I help people move from victim, which is that first stage when you're either angry or afraid or shamed or whatever it is. So it's dealing with the emotions of a victim and then helping you build resilience to become a survivor, and then helping you build your persistence, your perseverance, and your passion to become a thriver, and then to forgive to find your freedom.
Well, evidently, this unplaceable situation brought you something very beautiful at the end.
Well, I think so. I do believe that it is helping others, just to
Yeah.
know that there is hope at the end of that dark tunnel. And I always encourage people, don't wait as long as I did.
Yeah.
Do it straight away, because you can heal. You can heal very quickly if you know how to.
Lois, it's a very beautiful interview, truly. Thank you so much for sharing this powerful story. And I'm sure it's going to be very helpful with my community. And did you feel okay? Share it. I know it's now it's 25 years, but I don't know. How do you feel?
I feel fine. I've written a book about it.
All
Um,
right.
and so it's part my story and part a self-help
Yeah.
guide. So it gives tips on how you can heal yourself. So it's a useful book. It's not just my story.
Okay.
So yeah, so my story's out there.
Okay. So the name of the book is How to Feel Yourself from Lois Wagner.
No, it's called Walking Without Skin.
Okay. Okay. So happy to promote then, so people can have a look. And Lois, thank you so much. Do you have do you like to say something else before to conclude? Tell me.
No, just to learn to forgive yourself,
Yeah.
forgive yourself for being in that situation. Forgive yourself. I had to forgive myself for not knowing how to fight. So just learn to forgive yourself and to forgive the other person, because if they had known better, they would have behaved differently. So forgive, because that will give you freedom.
Beautiful. I'm gonna close like that. So thank you so much, Lois, and take care. Thanks.
Thank you.
Here we are. Congratulations. You just finished my entire episode. So, the only thing I ask is to take a moment to give Journey to Success a rating. By the way, thank you so much for being here on Journey to Success. I'm very grateful. Thank you and see you next time.